let's kick it off with some positives. For all these beaten up Blues supporters, I've got people texting me everywhere. Can you get Hoyney to find me a positive?
Comfortable. We'll see. What do we do?
Well, why is everyone trying to sack the coach if you can give us some positives?
No. Well, let's just, you ask me for the positives. Okay. I won't get into the negatives. We'll leave that to the side. But we talked about 6 weeks ago, didn't we? 6 or 7 weeks ago, Brain v Brawn.
Yeah.
Carlton, number one brawn team in the competition.
A bodybuilder.
So there's the positive, G and Sammy. They're still the number one brawn team in the competition.
So
unfortunately, 2025 footy isn't about brawn; it's about brain.
But he's going to do it again.
But if you're looking for the positive, G and Sammy, which you asked me for, the positive.
So what you're saying is, if they brought this football and transported themselves to 2021, they would play off in a grand final.
It would be very hard. They would be very hard to beat, but that's not 2025 footy. But in saying that, I know we're just having a bit of fun there. But they are number one brawn and number 18 brain. But if you were to look at this and just come in from the outside,
he's done it again. He's called the Blues the dumbest side in footy for the second time in 2 months.
I did not call it that. You just called it that, Jim. That's all. We'll roll with it. I would say, if you're looking at Carlton's profile as a whole, 60% to 70% is good.
Yep.
30 to 40% is bad. So we're not. It's not looking at it going,
can it be fixed with this group of players? Because if you haven't got the brain, how do you instill it? You can't get a brain transfer.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of two. I think it's a combination of trying to add more talent in, and the offensive system, especially when going inside 450. So I think if you're a Carlton supporter, you probably have a really good understanding now of what Melbourne supporters have felt like for the last 18 months, 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Win contest, get the footy inside forward 50, but your connection inside forward 50 is the issue. So I don't think we've ever seen a team with a profile of being the second best team in the comp to move the footy from one end of the ground to the other, but be 18th at scoring inside 50. So if you think about that, when you're moving it from one end of the ground to the other and going inside, they should be the easiest entries to score against because you're going into open space.
Yep. And you've also got a bloke called Kerner, and normally Harry McKay hasn't played much in recent times, but it's not like you haven't got some weapons in the forward half.
That might be the problem.
Can we just detail this just clear while we're talking? So they're third for inside 50 differential, right? They're second, as you say, D50 to forward 50 chains. They're number one contested ball differential. They're sixth clearance differential. And they're number two for pressure. That is 1, 2, 3, 5 uber positives.
And you're not even looking at what they do defensively. Second hardest team in the competition when you win possession to get it on the scoreboard against. So
this tells you one thing.
So
brain is underrated.
So only Collingwood are harder to actually score against in the competition.
So
defending ball movement, Carlton, number 2 in the competition this year. So
no wonder Vossi's losing his marbles.
That's what I'm saying. It's 60 to 70% is good. So this isn't gonna do you any justice here, Sammy, or bring any joy, just given the win-loss record. But if you're looking at this footy program and what's going wrong, it's the 30% component that you got to get to work on. And as you see, whether that's talent, whether that's trade, whether that's draft, whether that's system, whether that's coaching, it's going to work on the 30%. The 70%, you're not walking in and overlooking what is a basket case.
You need to import some brains.
You've got to get some brains. As you always say to me, G, that's the first thing that you try and recruit is the brain side of things. That's what Carlton need to go to work on clearly.
Get some nerds in there, Gerard. All right, your overall observations from the round that was. You've got accuracy writ large here.
Yes, I did, and I was going to have about 20 exclamation marks put next to this because sitting down Friday night, watching that game, and I'll get in and we'll celebrate Brisbane shortly into this show, but I don't know, and come in, guys, if you think I'm off track here, but it feels like everyone comments about how important accuracy is. But then when it actually plays a part in a game of footy, no one talks about it. And no one actually goes with the obvious answer that is the problem. We always talk about accuracy, but when it actually is a problem, we don't talk about it, right? So just this season alone, if your accuracy is better than your opposition's accuracy, you're winning 75% of matches. That's the highest percentage ever recorded in a season. So in other words, it's never been more important to be more accurate than your opponent. And people are like, oh, geez, that's pretty obvious. That's pretty obvious. No, it's not. Because you know what last year? Last year was 55%.
Right.
If you had greater accuracy than your opponent last year, 55% win rate. Up 20% this season with the importance of accuracy. Okay? So, and people laugh and people poo-poo expected scores. Oh, who cares? It's all about the win-loss, all about the win-loss. Well, what we do on this show, and I can guarantee you footy clubs and good footy clubs are keeping things big picture. We're not jumping at a W and an L and we're changing our mood, changing our mindset from week to week. We're looking at big picture. So expected scores, it is a guide and it is an audit for your system. It is looking at your system and determining what should have happened should you have kicked to expectation and should your opponent have kicked to expectation. As a coaching group, your number one objective through your system is to generate the opportunity in front of goal and generate the quality look in front of goal. If your blokes have a bad day in front of goal, it's not your fault. Your system's working. The accuracy side of things will level out across the season. Defensively, your objective as a coaching group is to restrict the opposition from generating an effective shot at goal. If they kick the lights out, well, you know what? Bad luck. That just happens. It's got nothing to do with your system. Your system's in good shape. Okay? That's why we look at expected scores. That's why Chris Scott referenced expected scores last week. That's why Fags talks about expected scores a lot. Coaches talk about expected scores a lot because that's what they're doing internally, right? So the reason why the frustration was there Friday is because Fags put this on the agenda all week. And we mentioned it on this show last week. For 2 weeks, Brisbane lost 2 games of footy where based on expected scores, they should have won by 60 points. Right? We hadn't seen that before in our time, our 15 years of doing it. Okay? And people are trying to find the narrative. What's going on with Brisbane? What's going on with Brisbane? Just relax. It's all good. And then you see it on the weekend. Yeah, great. They shoot the lights out. Fantastic. Had a brilliant win, and we'll celebrate that shortly. And then I wake up Saturday morning, and then I hear people talking about, oh, geez, have Geelong got issues? Have Geelong got some concerns? Well, you know what Geelong did on the weekend? They left 46 points out on the scoreboard through their poor accuracy in front of goal. That's the most ever recorded in a game of footy. 46 points. 51 points they scored. They should have scored, based on where they had their opportunities, they should have scored 97 points and won that game. And then you hear Chris Scott post-game, geez, what went wrong tonight? Yeah, no, we didn't play that. But you know what? Based on expected scores, things are okay. It's okay. Brisbane were fantastic. They were unbelievable.
Yep.
But no need to panic. It's all good. The Adelaide example, right? Adelaide example against Brisbane. Everyone's celebrating Adelaide, what they did and what have you. Expected scores had them losing by 32 points. You know the irony in that? 7 days later against Hawthorn, should have won that game.
Yep.
Lost that game. Yep. And people are now talking, oh, geez, are Adelaide okay against the top 8? Just relax. You talk about how important accuracy is.
Well, it cost the Suns as well, didn't it?
Oh, and it's just, it driving me insane. So, like, there's some teams this year that have been on the end of it. So Adam Kingsley is, I love listening to Adam. There's no fluff in what he does. He would be understanding it at the moment. Yeah, we're going okay, but we also can appreciate we've had some luck.
Shooting the lights out
our way. So our profile was it needs to change for us to be real and be serious in 2 months' time. Okay, so you've had the benefit there, but you've got a little bit of work to do. So I don't know. I don't know if you two agree, but it's just.
I watch nothing you hate more than a wins and lost analyst.
Oh, it drives me insane. Yep. And you're overlooking the most obvious component, which is accuracy. Yeah. And I understand it's boring and it's not sexy and it doesn't, but it's reality.
What happened to bad kicking's bad footy, Hoyney?
I don't know where that's gone.
Chad wanted it at a press conference today. Now, they won kicking 9-17, thankfully, right? But he was asked about accuracy and he was almost dismissive. He just said, oh, well, we're not worried about that at all. We know that'll change. But the rest of our games is starting to
spot on,
starting to grow and get 100%. Back into some
good. I think
that'll
Cox suggested to a few people I've spoken to that the numbers they achieve were the numbers that they've been aiming at all year, bar one. That was accuracy.
Yeah. I think some people, the problem with it though, Hoyney, is some people, if I can think for the masses here, associate expected score like England's moral victory. They just think, coulda, shoulda, woulda, and didn't,
No, I
That's
totally
the other
understand.
side.
I totally understand that as well, because at the end of the day, the W's and L's need to get you the starting spot on the grid. But if you're looking at big picture and your system and what's going to stack up at the end of the year, it's an audit and it's a guide on how your overall performance
Joel
is
Amati
actually
listening,
going.
by the way.
Yeah, so then that's the other thing. So then someone says to me the other day, they go, geez, you're a bit harsh with your ratings on Joel Amati, lowest rated game in champion data.
Yeah. What was it, -12 or whatever?
Yeah. He had 8 shots a goal and he kicked a goal.
Yeah, I thought you were generous, to be honest.
And kept the door ajar.
Yeah. No, you were generous. You could have been a -30.
Thank you. So, I don't know. Don't overlook the obvious.
Okay.
Accuracy has never been more important in a season that we're probably looking at. I don't know if you've done the ladder predictors, Sammy. I haven't looked at it, but I know Kingy tells me that potentially 15 wins might need to get you in to top 8 this year. Season that tight, accuracy has never been more important than what it currently
the more
is
even it is, the more significant things like accuracy become.
Kingy does need to get out more often. That has just been confirmed. All right, the best we've seen, one of your talking points from the weekend?
Well, what we've done on this show for the last couple of years is when a true great of the game retires, we celebrate and we recognise what they do. And I know me and you have talked about this guy for a number of years. Jeremy McGovern is an out and out great of our competition, and we will celebrate him over the next couple of minutes. So over the last 10 years, these are the top 4 players in the game over the last 10 years. Pat Dangerfield, number 1. Bontempelli, number 2. Jeremy McGovern, number 3. And Dusty, number 4. That is the company that this guy is in. His finals record, the top 5 finals players over the last 10 years. Dusty, number 1, we know that. Jack Chris, we talk about him and his finals record, and we'll talk about that in a couple of months' time. Brodie Grundy, number 3, his finals record has actually been quite strong. Luke Shuey played the highest rated grand final.
Greatest ever grand final.
We've actually recorded. And then Jeremy McGovern as the 5th best finals player we've seen.
I spoke to a senior journalist today, Hoyney, and I spoke about McGovern. And he said, "Oh no, he's a stats. He gets biased with stats. He doesn't play on anybody."
Well, just keep listening to this, mate. We'll keep feeding him some more information. So he's had 10 straight seasons where he's averaged 3+ intercept marks. No other player has done that in the history of the game for more than 5 seasons. He did it for 10 straight years. He averaged 3.5 intercept marks across his career. No player in the game has averaged that across their career. He's had 53 matches of 5+ intercept marks. The next most is 40. The 10 best seasons that we've seen the 5 best seasons that we've seen by a key defender all belong to Jeremy McGovern. 15 rating points for a key defender is out of this world. Out of this world good. He's done it 52 times.
Sheesh.
No key defender's done that in the game. His win rate in a one-on-one contest, so his ability to outmark his opponent in a one-on-one contest, no player's ever been better in the game than what he did in a one-on-one contest. He's an absolute superstar of our game, and I hope everyone can just appreciate and recognise just how good of a footballer this guy is. And it's probably, I don't know what you two think, it's probably a little bit, unfortunate that probably, the 2 best key defenders that we've seen over the last 15 years in McGovern and Rance go out, unfortunately, through injury. But what he's been able to do with, that profile there, we'll be very lucky to see another key defender with, recording that type of profile over the next period of time.
Yeah, he's been an unbelievable player, an ornament to the game, and sadly, the game has not looked after him by allowing pushing in the back to proliferate so much that he's been KO'd. I think Simo said 5 times in the same action.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
With the push, the Brisbane Lions, you gave them some love earlier, but did you want to circle back to them or cover them?
No, we got to give that. I think we got to
surgical.
I think we got to recognise when the best play the best and what actually happened in that. That might happen hopefully for us in a couple of months' time. But I know, G, and this is why I want to have a conversation with you. I know you've referenced for a number of times that if you play Brisbane, the first thing you do is go to Lachie Neale.
Yep.
I think those days are done.
Done.
Yeah, they're finished. And it's not a crack at Lockie. It's a handing of the baton. It's now Hugh McCluggage and Will Ashcroft.
Yep.
They're the ones that you go for. If you're a footy club and you think Lockie's the one that you got to go for, you're going to get burnt and you're going to get opened up the other way, because their three best players this season, Brisbane, and by a little way, Dane Zorko, who I thought was unbelievable on Friday night. I've never seen a bloke kick in the ball quicker than what he couldn't get the footy and kick it in any quicker than what he did. Hugh McCluggage and Will Ashcroft. So Will Ashcroft's game on the weekend was superb, highest rated player on the ground, didn't get the attention that you thought, or Hugh didn't get the attention either. So if you come up against Brisbane, those days for me are done. The baton's been handed over to Hugh and to Will, and I've always said that, and I've always thought this, and obviously you play in midfield. McCluggage and Ashcroft, well, Ashcroft in particular, has never had attention to him at AFL level from a tag situation, and McCluggage rarely has been tagged. So I wonder how they handle it when they're not used to it. So you saw Dacos on the weekend. That was the first time he's really beaten the tag this year, and it took him 7-8 times to actually get to that stage. So I'd be going after them. And the other thing with this, so unpacking what this team does to Geelong. So Geelong are the quickest ball movement team in the competition. We've spoken about that a lot of the time this year. This Brisbane defensive unit, which has been underrated for so long, we see what they do offensively, but defensively it actually doesn't get spoken about. They slow them down more than any other team in the competition does. What Geelong did ball in hand from a ball movement perspective was clearly their slowest ball movement game of the season. So when Geelong play at high octane ball movement speed level, they're 8-2 this year. When they play around AFL average speed of ball movement, they're 2-3. And ironically, 3 of those losses, 2 of them are now been against Brisbane. Prelim final night last year, in terms of time with ball in hand for how long it took Geelong to get rid of it, quickest team or one of the quickest teams in the comp all year. Prelim final night, their slowest ball movement game of the year last year. So that's now a trend that Brisbane have been able to do. And if you're an opposition team looking at coming up against Geelong, you're going to work on what they've
Brisbane's
done
doing
for the last 3 matches. Slow this team down. They want speed. They want the game played at a fast pace to get their runners going, get their ball movement game going, get their assets involved. Defensively, they are brilliant with how they've actually stifled Geelong now, as I said, for the last 3 occasions. So absolute full credit to what they've done. And then as a result of that slowness with ball in hand, because their Geelong are going so slow, when Brisbane are winning the ball back behind centre, their counterpunch game against Geelong is off the charts. 9 goals from the back half on the weekend, 8 goals in round 3, 8 of their 10 goals from round 3 out of the back half. And in that second half in the prelim last year, the exact same thing. So there's a mode there that they've absolutely executed. You're going to work if you're coming up against Geelong, if you're any other team.
Far be it from me to question the smartest man in footy, Hoyney, but my gut feeling is that the baton has been handed over only because Lockie has been tagged. You untag him, you look at him, fly.
Yeah, well, I'll go the Hugh and the Will. I'll go the Hugh and the Will, and you go the Lockie.
Well, the beauty is, and this is the great strength.
Oh, 100%.
Their midfield depth is so deep. It's as deep as I think I've ever seen in a footy club at any stage in any era. It just bats so deep. You can tag one, and the other 2 will get you.
Yep. No, they're in a good spot. With the back end of the season.
Love how they set themselves for that game too. Got down super early, treated it like a final, and they delivered. Where is best, Hoyney?
So 9 games to go before the final series, and I'm just interested to see where a couple of these players that have played multiple positions this year, where they start to settle as we head into September. And Luke Jackson is obviously front of mind. He's the number 1 ruck in the competition when he plays ruck. He's having, you will like this, he's having a Nick Nat type of season.
Don't even suggest that he should move.
Well, he is the number 1 ruck in the competition. So this is what he does, right? This is frightening. So per 100 minutes, when he plays as a ruck on the scoreboard, Fremantle are +2 goals on their opposition. Right? So going well. When he plays any other position over a 100-minute period, they're minus 52 points on the scoreboard.
Sheesh.
What?
They're a 64-point better team with him playing in the ruck than any other position on the ground. So I don't know.
Well, the second smartest man in footy's been advocating this for a long time, Kane.
Yeah, because it's not even about Luke Jackson. It's about, well, it is, but it's about Sean Darcy can't play anywhere else, though. So when he plays, he has to be accommodated in the ruck. So every time he's playing in the ruck, you are diluting one of your prime assets.
I'm only playing Sean Darcy when Luke Jackson needs a game of less ruck minutes just to just manage him through or just give him a breather before finals. That's the only situation.
Are you trading Darcy?
Oh, 100%.
100% you're trading Sean Darcy.
It's a Brody Grundy situation of 2 years ago with Max Gawn.
Yeah.
And it took,
albeit I think he's getting paid less. So it's an absolute no-brainer.
So it's a no-brainer. A couple of others just
so is he
before
going
we
to Brisbane?
I think Brisbane would have an interest. They should do, shouldn't they?
Yeah.
I reckon if Sam Draper's been linked, albeit you'd have to trade for him because he's in contract.
Sorry, Hoyney.
Couple of
got a bit
others.
angry there. Did you see him get angry then?
Oh, we've got a lot to get through here. A couple of others just before we get to the guess who.
So
Blake Hardwick, Hawthorn are 3 goals better off when he plays down back compared to playing forward. So it'll be interesting to see that post-buy. Isaac Heaney, the Swans are 6 goals better off when he's playing as a midfielder compared to when he's playing forward.
Okay.
Jordan Dawson, the Crows are 3 goals better off when he's playing as a forward compared to a midfielder.
That's his best spot.
Dylan Moore, so again, Hawks post-buy, midfield issues. The Hawks are 4 goals better off when Dylan Moore plays as a midfielder than what he does as a forward. So I'm interested to see those minutes now over the next couple of weeks. Nick Martin with Essendon, just interested with this magnet. They're 5 goals better off as a footy team when he plays across half forward compared to when he plays behind the footy.
What about Zach Merritt when he plays across half back?
Zach Merritt, I have not got that for you. I've got that here for you as well. The interesting one was, I'll get it for you after the break. The interesting one with Hawthorn, so I mentioned a few of their players, and again, post-buy, what are they going to do? James Sicily coming back in. The margin actually doesn't change.
Right.
From when he plays forward to when he plays back. So the ones that do change is what Weddle does and what Blake Hardwick does. So just a couple of interesting ones there.
Very
we'll keep a track of this.
Good stuff from you, Hoyney.
To the back end of the year.
You are loaded. I knew you were. You better give us your guess who before we get to this break.
Okay, so since round 8, who is the worst contested possession team in the competition?
Since round 8, the worst contested possession team in the comp.
Since round 8, who is the worst contested possession team in the competition?
All right, I've gone up and down the ladder all ad break. I've settled on Collingwood. Gerard?
Well, for the same reason I settled on Collingwood.
You settled on Collingwood as well? You absolute sheep. All right, we're united on Collingwood, Hoyney.
Geez, if the audience could just see the ad break and the confusion and the
it's chaos.
Well, it's fair to say I nominated Collingwood.
Just put us out of our misery.
There was no control in here. It was a full-blown chaos 5-minute period. I give you the tip. But amongst all the chaos, well done, John. It's a proud moment. You're both right.
Yeah.
You're both absolutely spot on.
How many stabs did we have in the ad break?
Well, Sammy was going to go to the Dogs, and that was...
I told you, didn't I?
I'm glad
Are they number one from scoring from clearance?
Yes, they are.
Yeah, I did say they'll end up being
introduction.
I'm glad you've been listening over the last couple of weeks.
Ended up being the antithesis of the actual.
It was a proud.
Why do you raise this, Hoyney? Because there's always method in your madness.
Yeah, no, there always is. So clearly they are the best team in the competition, and we know that, and we've spoken about that at length, like everyone else has. But you're trying just to look at little bits and pieces with what
Where
they're
they
going
need to improve.
with where they're going at the moment. And this is an area of where it's going. Whilst we continually talk about it is brain over brawn, and 2025 footy is about ball use as opposed to how you win it. We always say you just need your fair share in contest and then get it done. And then show us your system, show us your offensive power, show us your defensive power, and what have you. Right now, since round 8, they're losing contested footy by 16.
Too much
per game. That's a belting. They've had a pretty reasonable sort of draw in that time. The first 7 weeks of the year, they lost contested footy once in their first 7 weeks of the year. They've won it only once in their last 8 games of the year. So again, if you're a Collingwood supporter, this is another sign of, okay, this is where we can improve. We're not absolutely bulletproof at the moment. And it's probably a reason as to why, since that time, they are actually the second easiest team in the competition to move the ball against from one end of the ground to the other, which only Essendon are easier to move the footy against from one end of the ground to the other. They're brilliant once it actually gets in there. They are the hardest team, to actually score against once again. But they do give you a look in there. And it's probably a reason as to why they've only generated 48 entries a game.
And just on that,
in this period.
I know this is a question without notice. So they number one for efficiency once inside 50?
Yep.
Yeah.
So they're number one in their forward 50, they're number one in their
Yeah.
D50 in terms of efficiency. But this contested possession issue, take away the clearance side of things, in between the arcs, 7/8 in the competition since round 8. So just thinking longer term in terms of finals, if you give Brisbane this amount of look from a contest situation, if you give Geelong this amount of look from a contest situation, that's going to be interesting to see how that holds up into September. So not panic stations for Collingwood whatsoever. They are the best team in the competition. But this, for us and just for everyone else, if you're trying to put something on watch for Collingwood, this is front of mind with where they're at the moment.
Hoyney, instinctively, most people, I think, would be saying to win a game of footy, you effectively got to win contested ball or be very close. And you're telling us that the best side in the competition right now are getting spanked at contested ball, plus 16 on average, or minus 16 on average. That to me says it's structural, that they're pushing guys behind the ball and they're leaving 2 against 3 to try and win the ball, and they like getting it into an open forward line, which they're doing. They've got extras behind the ball. Do you think it's structural? Do you think it's strategy, or do you think this is a problem?
I don't think it's strategy. I don't think Craig McRae and the coaches would be setting up in a way where we're happy and satisfied to be losing contested footy by 16. They're not going to be setting up a game, and they're not a team that's setting up a game where they're going to win, or they're out there to win contest by +5, by +10 a game. We talked about their final series when we talked about Brain and Brawn in 23. They didn't win contested footy once, but they got close to that break-even situation because of what their system is like with ball in hand and defensively. So
have you broken down what parts of contested ball they're getting pantsed at?
So we're breaking down zone by zone. So the 3
what
zones.
About
so inside forward 50, just taking away stoppage work. So just when the ball's in general play. Inside forward 50, they're a break-even team. They're actually mid-table, so that's okay. Midfield area, like I said, second worst team in the competition. And D50, they're actually the 4th worst team in the competition because
that's not strategy.
Because they get so many numbers back and they actually outnumber you. They're quite often they're able to actually win the ball in an uncontested situation behind the footy. So there's just a little bit there just to keep an eye on moving forward. As I said, not panic stations, but if we're looking at this in another 6 weeks' time, panic stations might have ramped up a little bit.
Fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Now, we spent a lot of time talking about where North Melbourne roll a team. Unfairly to Kangaroo supporters, I know they're onto this. We spend too much time talking about the team that they beat rather than North Melbourne's effort themselves. But you got the Kangaroos here on your running sheet.
Yeah, so I think if you're a North Melbourne supporter, one of the best decisions your footy club has made for the last 5 years was saying to the St Kilda Footy Club when they wanted Tristan Cherry, no, thank you.
And that was a big deal too. They had to dig in for that.
Yeah, and I remember people reading about, why don't we just give out Tristan Cherry? We got Goldstein there. And the list management team and the footy club, we're not getting rid of it. We can see what this guy's going to be.
Had his heart set on going too.
Yeah, and right now, as a result of that trade not going through and saying no to the St Kilda Footy Club, you've been able to win 3 of your last 8 games with a draw against the reigning premier and lose 4 reasonably tight games. So the reality is over this 8-week period, you are winning games of footy and you're in games of footy because of what Tristan Cherry is doing. He is phenomenal. Their clearance work, their raw clearance game at the moment is number 1 at the competition. Their differential in terms of scoreboard differential at stoppage is the 5th best in the competition. So that is their point of difference, and that's why they have quarters like they did the first quarter against West Coast and the last quarter against West Coast where they dominate stoppage, the scoreboard return comes. That's the one thing I just want to put on watch with them. So that's the positive. That's identify that as their asset. But we know the 65% of the game is what you do outside of clearance and what you do in the turnover game. And that needs significant improvement before you can really get the energy and the excitement and the enthusiasm up about this team seriously being on the right path. Because Right now, their turnover stuff, their ability to be able to punish you on turnover is the worst in the competition. Their ball movement in this time is the worst in the competition. Their forward 50 in this time is the worst in the competition. So their clearance stuff, huge tick off the back of what Tristan Cherry is doing. Offensively, ball movement-wise, still got a fair bit to go in terms of, until you can actually properly start to get consistency and real belief with what this footy club's doing. So parts of it, well, the bigger part still to come.
Just going back to Tristan Sherry, my understanding is the Saints offered 58 and 62 only for him. Imagine if they'd have offered a first rounder or a second rounder. Potentially the Kangaroos might have flipped.
Second rounder they might have. First rounder was unthinkable. It was never going to happen at the time. But I think the second rounder was what the Kangas were holding out for. Might have been Luffy's era, actually.
They're going to pay 1.7 for a bloke who isn't even as good.
And then I remember when Clarkson selected Cherry over Goldstein in his first game or second game that he was in charge.
Yeah.
And the criticism was, what are you doing here? Well, list management identified what he could do.
Yep.
Clarkson identified what he can do. Just hats off to those decisions that can easily be forgotten about what could have actually been a couple of years ago.
All right, let's talk about the Sydney Swans. Amazing how much better you look as a coach when you get some players back. Goulden back, Papley back, Joel Amati, even though he kicked, it was goalless from 8 shots. Matty Roberts back in as well. They got some quality back in the side, and they won their second game on the bounce.
Yeah, they did. And I reckon a couple of weeks ago we spoke about, I can't tell you how many times I've heard Dean Cox's reference defence and contest. That's what they want to. He wants to change the way in which they defend and the way in which they attack contests. So, what are they? 6 and 8, 5 and I wouldn't even know what the ladder is, to be perfectly honest. But whether or not they make finals or not, it's probably going to be a long shot. But you can start to see, especially defensively, how he wants to play and what he wants to do with this team. What they did against, and they're going to have the best challenge in terms of, defensively coming up this week against the Dogs compared to what they had against Port Adelaide. But what they did defensively against Port Adelaide was superb. To restrict them to 35 entries is the second fewest in a game by Port in 8 years. To only give them the footy back 43 times, that's the second fewest turnovers by any team in 8 years. So they were careful with ball in hand, and then defensively they were brilliant behind the footy. Across the season, they've been the third hardest team to actually move the ball against from one end of the ground to the other. So if you're a Sydney supporter and you're trying to identify what's Dean Cox trying to work on, how does his system look, it's what he's trying to do defensively. He's told us that because, as I said 5, 6, 7 weeks ago, the reality was heading into last year, before grand final day, if I had just given you a blank canvas and presented the defensive profile of this team, there is no way in God's name anyone would have said that was Sydney.
Yep.
Because defensively in all key areas, 10, 11, 12, 13th, they were on the ladder. It was just what they were doing offensively. So he identified it and understood what needed to be done. That's why I'm excited for them this week, coming up against the best offensive team in the competition. This is the proper audit for the development that you've had 15, 16 weeks with this group of players to see defensively how does it go against the best offense in the competition. And just lastly, before we just move on from the Swans, just a bit of recognition to what Brodie Grundy's doing over the last 6 weeks. So he starts of the year really slow, outside the top 100 rated players.
Got dragged
in the competition, not really having the influence that we've seen from Brodie over the years. But his last 6 weeks, top 20 player in the competition, 7th best clearance player in the comp, not just ruck, just of all players, and the 7th best contested possession player in the competition.
High praise from you, Hoyney.
I heard Isaac Heaney post-game, reference just what he's doing at the moment. Thought, have a bit of a look at that. Yeah, full credit to what he's done over this 6-week period.
I said to a bloke yesterday who went with Heaney, I would have thought Grundy would have him in the best and fairest count if it was counted right now. Yes or no?
No, I'd still go. I'd be interested to see where Chad Warner is in the BNF count as well. I'd have Warner and Heaney and Blakey still 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
Who did they miss?
Well, just before we get into that, I did miss the job that Nick Dacos did against James Jordan early on this year. The feedback on the text machine came through that
So
he
limited.
did beat the James Jordan tag, so apologies for that one. That's 2 tags that he's...
2 tags he's beaten.
Oh,
yeah,
2.
so apologies for that. But yes, you were right, Collingwood supporters. Well done. So who did they miss? So Josh Tracy on Thursday night, go all the way back. Feels like a lifetime ago. Third highest rated player on the ground, didn't get a vote. You know what he did, Gerard?
What did he do?
He was accurate in front of goal.
Oh.
Very accurate
How
in
dare
front of
he?
goal. So 11 disposals, involved in 8 scores, kicked 3 goals straight.
they miss him?
Going along very nicely.
They weren't accurate.
I think they underrated accuracy.
Okay.
So we'll go to Saturday, and I know Sam Doherty got a vote from a Carlton perspective, but I thought clearly Mitch McGovern was the most influential Blue. On Saturday, we had him as the second highest rated player on the ground. Didn't get a vote from the coaches. 16 disposals, 4 goals. No one used the ball better on the ground than what Mitch McGovern did.
Mm-hmm.
Saturday night, like what this guy does for St Kilda, Max Hall. Think he's he's quite creative with ball in hand. 4th highest rated player on the ground. Didn't get a vote. Only 12 disposals. But 9 contested possessions for that type of player is rare.
Only 4 kicks.
7 score involvements from those 12 disposals and 1 goal. So
Okay.
did really well. And then the Sunday cracking game, Gold Coast GWS, the one that you did, G. Really surprised Jared Witts didn't get a vote.
Yes, he was good.
In this game. We had him as the highest rated player on the ground, considering the damage that Gold Coast did out of centre bounce.
Yeah.
He was influential, and that was probably almost the reason
First
why
3 goals.
they got over the line with their centre bounce work. So surprised he actually didn't get a vote from the coaches in that game.
All right, Josh Tracy, Mitch McGovern, Max Hall, Jared Witts, your MDP, most damaging player.
Yeah, so overall, Luke Jackson, as has been widely recognised, the highest rated game ever by a Docker. So he was, no player had greater influence what he did. Caleb Sarong thought his ball use on Thursday night was superb, having a brilliant season. No one used the ball better this weekend. Tom Atkins on Friday night for Geelong. No one had greater impact with how they won the footy. Thought he tried to keep them in it as long as he possibly could. And then through their defensive actions was Sam Collins on Sunday against GWS.
Now, as always with your gem and horror, I give you the choice. You always like to start with the good first. Do you want
No,
to
we'll
start?
go with the good, and then we'll finish. We'll bookend the show with
You
Carlton.
like to finish nasty.
So we'll go the gem first. So Noah Anderson's game on the weekend.
Yeah,
so put
superb.
this in a bit of context. 40 disposals, 15 plus contested possessions, 15 plus score involvements, and 2 goals. Only 2 players have done that over the last. Only 2 players ever have done that before. Noah is now one of them. The other one, Dusty in 2017.
Very good, Dusty.
So he's in elite company there with what he did against GWS. And Carlton, so this is an interesting one for Carlton moving forward. We mentioned this last year on the show. So when TDK is by himself,
Yep.
they're 15-7. When Pitnet is in the team, they're 4-12.
I felt they needed Pitnet on the weekend, though, because
Absolutely, I
Sherry
agree.
was having his way with Tom
Pitnet
Buchanan.
beat Sherry.
Not for the first time. Not
Yeah,
for the
so
first time.
just
but,
something just to just keep an eye on for the Blues.